People love Dick Van Dyke even though he is 100 years old. He still has the same warm smile and kind spirit. But the people who helped shape his life in quiet but important ways are hidden behind that big smile. Some people were there for him when things were the worst. He got ideas from some of them, and some of them moved him so much that he still keeps their spirit alive today. These 6 people were more than just work for him. They were a part of his life. They showed him the way, helped him, and were there for him long after the cameras stopped rolling. Their love, lessons, and even broken hearts made him the man he is today. These 6 people will always be important to Dick Van Dyke. It will break your heart to find out who the winner is. The Margie Willett. There was Margie Willett before he was famous, before the lights, and before anyone in Hollywood even knew his name. Neither was she a co-star nor a producer nor an executive at the company. In fact, he fell in love with her long before he ever thought about becoming famous. They had nothing to begin with. They didn't have enough money to even pay for their own wedding. Went ahead and got married live on a radio show just to get the wedding paid for. It wasn't fancy, but it was true. That was the most important thing to Dick. Margie was with him through the hard times, the loss, the many interviews, and the late nights when he couldn't sleep. He wasn't sure if he would ever make it. When they finally got ahead, she took a step back and quietly raised their 4 kids while her husband's work took up more and more of his time. But fame has its dark sides, and Dick's rising distance and problems with alcohol show that. Pulling them apart slowly. He has talked a lot about the guilt he felt, the mistakes he made, and the hurt he caused her without meaning to. The memories of their marriage lived on, but the marriage did not. Margie still reminds him of who he was before he became famous, even though he is 100 years old. The woman who loved him when he had nothing, and the one he still feels sad when he thinks about. Julie Andrews. Julie Andrews was more than just a co-star. There was a warmth and grace about her that made every room feel softer at the moment. She came in. When Dick met her on the set of Mary Poppins for the first time, he knew right away that he was with a special person. It sounded like her voice was from another world, and she was so sure of herself that even the busiest film days seemed like magic. For Julie and Dick showed all the beautiful things about the art of acting. She was always nice and quiet, and she never made a scene by acting like she was better than other people. Still, she was always the most beautiful thing about the scene. It wasn't work at all to work with her. Pure joy was felt. He still talks about those times as some of the happiest of his work, even after many years have passed. But her skill wasn't the only thing that stuck with him. It was kind of her. When he had trouble with, she told him to have faith. She had faith in him even when he didn't. Their friendship never ended, even as Hollywood went through different times. It's rare for Dick to talk about someone with nothing but love to say about them, no hurt feelings, no regrets, and no secret scars. Just thankful. Her words helped him remember that Hollywood and people could be nice. Even though Dick Van Dyke is 100 years old, Julie is still one of the best memories he has of the people who helped shape his life. This was a sign of kindness in a world that had forgotten what it looked like. Laurel and Stan. It wasn't long ago that Dick Van Dyke was just a young performer who watched the man he admired most and copied his every move, look, and quiet stroke of genius. It's not just that Stan Laurel was a famous comedian. For Dick, he was the plan. The person who made him laugh and showed him that funny things could be kind and innocent while still being strong enough to change the world. Dick watched Laurel and Hardy movies over and over again as a child until the reels were worn out. He learned how to walk, smile, and tilt his head. Not out of, but out of awe, not to copy. After all those years, when he finally met Stan Laurel in person, he felt whole. Laurel showed him the door not like a fan but like a friend. They didn't say much, but they laughed a lot and liked the same kind of humor. It looked like it was from a simpler, better time. In his last years, Dick went to see him often, and most of the time, all he did was sit with him and listen to whatever wisdom Laurel had to give. And Hollywood didn't feel smaller when Stan died. He brought Laurel's world to Dick's. Speech in a shaking voice, praising the man who had shaped not only his work but also his heart. Dick still feels Stan's impact in his timing, his warmth, and his deep belief that making people smile is one of the best things anyone can do. He is 100 years old now. Stan wasn't just a hero. He was a light that he never stopped following. Mary Tyler Moore. Mary Tyler Moore did more than just work with other people. As soon as she walked onto the set of the Dick Van Dyke Show, she changed everything. Name. Dick thought she was interesting. A rare mix of grace, wit, and emotion that brought each scene to life. She was new, young, and taking on a job that would have been hard for most people. But Mary kept a quiet air about her. Determination that caught Dick's attention right away. It was easy to work with her. Their timing fit together easily. They seemed to naturally get along, and the scenes they made together are still remembered as landmarks in television history. Dick told her many times that she made him better. More present, funnier, and sharper. She used scenes without taking them, and in ways no one saw coming, she became the show's heart. But they were both having their own fights going on behind that laughing. Mary fought her own problems in silence. Getting drunk. The stress of fame and heartbreaks in their own lives. She kept hidden behind her beautiful smile. Dick knew that pain better than he told anyone at the time. Their bond wasn't emotional, but it was very human. Two artists who hold each other up when the world called for perfection. In 2017, Mary died. Dick said it was like losing a piece of the past that he never wanted to let go of. It wasn't just her ability that made her stand out. People will always remember her because she brought joy into his life when he needed it the most. He still feels the thought of Mary Tyler Moore in his heart, even though he is 100 years old. Renee Carl. Carl Reiner would be the person Dick Van Dyke would pick as the most important person in his life. There. The link wasn't made because of fame or ease of access. They respected each other, laughed at the same things, and became closer friends with each passing year. Carl didn't just give Dick a part on the Dick Van Dyke Show when he cast him. He made a plan for him. He saw something in that young, skinny artist that not even Dick himself fully saw yet. Carl didn't just make things or work with other people. He showed Dick the way, was a steady voice when he doubted himself, and was a calm center when things got crazy during Dick's early fame. Also, their friendship grew over the years into something very rare in Hollywood, a bond that had nothing to do with work and everything to do with real human connection. They talked almost every night for more than 60 years. No matter how long or short it is, it's always there. With delight and love all the time. It turned into a habit, a way of life, and a warning that some things never changed, no matter how much the world changed. Dick said that losing Carl in 2020 was like losing a part of himself. After that there was a heavy quiet. Not familiar. Without Carl, the world would be missing its best sound. A laugh. Even though Dick is 100 years old now, he still feels that loss. It wasn't just that everyday Carl was memorable. He couldn't be replaced. That friend who was always there for him. Michelle Triola. During Dick Van Dyke's long and interesting life, Michelle Triola made an impact that will last longer than any other person. She didn't come along when he was young or when he was at his strongest. Well known. She came after he was older and tired from guilt, sorrow, and a job that had given him a lot but also taken a lot away. Michelle was not like the world he lived in. She wasn't interested in the attention, the legacy, or the demands. She liked him. The person behind the jokes, the smile, and the past. Their link was quiet and not flashy. It was calm, steady, and healing. She stood by his side for 35 years, not as an extra in a Hollywood movie. Icons, but as the woman who helped him find parts of himself he thought were lost for good. She was there for him when he got sober, when he was having emotional problems, and when the weight of his past finally caught up with him in quiet times. After that, she wasn't there in 2009. His grief was greater than any other grief he had ever felt. Dick shut himself off from everyone, avoiding cameras and interviews as he tried to deal with a sadness that was too heavy for him to carry. He once said that losing her was like losing his footing. Even now, at Even though it's been 100 years, that wound is still open. Michelle wasn't just late-life love for him. His heart kept going back to her because she was the safe place it was. Dick Van Dyke will never forget any of these people. Michelle is the one who's still. The person who breaks him and the person who keeps him going. Dick Van Dyke has been alive for 100 years and knows that the things that really made him who he is weren't the awards or the praise. Those were the people who walked next to him. The ones who helped him when he was down. They gave him hope when he didn't believe in himself and stayed in his heart long after they were no longer with him. Each of these 6 people left a mark on him that time could never erase. They helped him through happiness, sadness, love, and death. Now that we look back, his life story is really the story of the people who helped write it. Who do you think he still cared about the most after all these years? Share your thoughts below. Also, don't forget to subscribe to get more news from the best time for TV ever.